We continue today of our discussion on poetry, our love for poetry. You've heard of Sarah Teasdale? Sarah Teasdale.
No, no.
O beauty, O beauty, out of many a cup you have made me drunk and wild, ever since I was a child. But when have I been sure as now that no bitterness can bend and no sorrow wholly bow one who loves you to the end? And though I must give my breath and my laughter all to death, and my eyes through which joy came, and my heart a wavering flame, if all must leave me and go back along a blind and fearful track, so that you can make anew, fusing with intenser fire something nearer your desire. If my soul must go alone through a cold infinity, or even if it vanish too, beauty, I have worshipped you.
Oh, beautiful.
Let this single hour atone for the theft of all of me.
Beautiful. Beautiful, really. No, I agree that lots of things are being done by modern poets, but unfortunately, I have not, means on my own, I have not discovered them. So, and there's another thing also that so much of my time is spent in teaching that I don't have the time to explore.
Yeah.
See that?
I'll read one more from her.
Sure.
Barter. Life has loveliness to sell, all beautiful and splendid things, blue waves whitened on a cliff, soaring fire that sways and sings, and children's faces looking up, holding wonder like a cup. Life has loveliness to sell, music like the curve of gold, scent of pine trees in the rain, eyes that love you, arms that hold, and for your spirit's still delight, holy thoughts that star the night. Spend all you have for loveliness, buy it and never count the cost. For one white singing hour of peace, count many a year of strife well lost, and for a breath of ecstasy, give all you have been or could be.
I naturally appreciate because that is exactly what I feel myself. Not that I can express it so well, but there's nothing compared to beauty and loveliness, and this one can easily see it is the romantic side of her nature.
Definitely.
So ultimately, it comes back
Yes.
to again romanticism.
But if you would talk a bit about rhyme and what is the place of rhyme in the future? Is there a place for rhyme in the future?
You see, the thing is, this is, very frankly, what I find is, especially now that I'm reading Aurobindo, when Aurobindo corrects Neruda's poems, and he insists that in the beginning at least, he should concentrate on the proper rhythm and rhyme, then I find that rhyme has a tremendous value. Tremendous value, there's no doubt about it. And sometimes, this I have seen myself. Aurobindo also says it, I've heard it from Aniruddha too, that sometimes a rhyme can set you off. That rhyme actually, as though that becomes the nucleus, and round that a poem gets built. Sometimes it happens in that way. And rhyme does have some power of its own. Because you have noticed especially you'll notice in poetry, repetition of certain words, if they come in with a proper balance, then they create a tremendous effect. And we know the value of repetition. That is, even in the spiritual, from the spiritual point of view, what we call japa.
Japa, of course.
What we call
yes,
japa.
yes.
So we repeat the same thing, and then something happens to you within you. So repetition has a power of its own, but it has to be done in a proper manner with sufficient control and restraint. So now Aurobindo does believe in rhyme, and personally, now I'm talking about my feelings, that when some of the modern poets, when they want to write only in blank verse, then I think there's a bit of shortcut and a bit of cheating involved.
Interesting.
That is, as though they are not able to use rhyme properly, so they're taking a kind of bypass, and they're denigrating rhyme. Sometimes I feel that. But if it happens, as we often find in T.S. Eliot, he can rhyme, but he does not. That we see, because many of his poems, they're filled with wonderful rhymes.
Oh,
T.S.
yes.
Eliot.
Yes, very much so.
Very much so. So it is that he can use rhyme, but he doesn't want to do it on purpose for a particular reason. Now there, I think of it, again, often I give this kind of comparison to my students. I give them the example of Picasso. Now Picasso, we know him as a modern painter, one of the ultra-modern painters, and that he has done all kinds of things. He has taken all kinds of liberties, all that we know.
Yeah.
So often people like me who are traditionalists, they shy away from his modern paintings. But then, if you see Picasso at the beginning of his career, in his blue and pink period.
I've seen those paintings,
seen those.
yes.
There you see the lines. You fall in love with his lines. You don't need color or anything. You just see the lines and you fall in love with them. That means he has such mastery. Now, if such a man wants to discard line and do things in an abstract manner or surrealistic manner, then I have no quarrel, because he is trying out something. I may not like it, but I'll give him credit for trying out something. But if you can't draw for nuts and you say I'm a painter, now that is so. In the same way with the poets, because I really find that sometimes one can. Aurobindo himself says that in the Future Poetry, that sometimes some of these poets, it seems that they have just written prose, then they have broken up the lines and arranged them in verse form.
Yes.
No, that is, I think, outright cheating.
I think so.
That's what I feel.
So rhyme has a place in the future.
Definitely.
Wonderful. And of all the meters, you said iambic pentameter was the best, easiest in English.
It comes most spontaneously.
What about quatrameter?
Quatrameter, when you want to create a dancing rhythm, then iambic quatrameter is the right one. Because it automatically comes in a kind of dancing tune. I'll give you just one example. Milton, in L'Allegro, he invokes mirth. He says, "But come, thou spirit, fair and free, in heavenly cleft you frozy knee, and by men heart-easing mirth, whom lovely Venus at a birth, with two sister graces more, to ivy-crowned Bacchus bore. So you notice that there is that
Yes.
rhythm.
There is.
There
Yes.
is beautiful
yes,
rhythm.
yes.
And very interestingly, he uses the same iambic tetrameter, but he removes the dancing rhythm. It's quite interesting to note. I'll show you. You notice that it is a tetrameter, and yet, but hail thou goddess, sage and holy, hail divinest melancholy, whose saintly visage is too bright to hit the sense of human sight, and therefore to our weaker view, o'erlaid with black, staid wisdom's hue. Black, but such as in esteem Prince Memnon's sister might be seen, or that starred Ethiop queen that strove to set her beauty's praise above the sea nymphs and their powers offended. You notice that although it is iambic tetrameter,
Yes.
it should go in a dancing way,
Yes.
but he
He
changes
takes it out. Yes.
because he does it in a very clever manner. He puts these long vowels so that automatically everything is slowed down and he creates the effect. So,
Are you familiar with Edna St. Vincent Millay?
yes, I have read quite a few poems by her. Oh, not this one I haven't read. Shall I read it out?
Please.
O world, I cannot hold thee close enough. Thy winds, thy wide grey skies, thy mists that roll and rise, thy woods, this autumn day, that ache and sag, and all but cry with colour, that gaunt crag to crush, to lift the lean of that black bluff. World, world, I cannot get thee close enough. Long have I known a glory in it all, but never knew I this. Here such a passion is, as stretcheth me apart. Lord, I do fear thou hast made the world too beautiful this year. My soul is all but out of me. Let fall no burning leaf, prithee, let no bird call. Really beautiful.
So beautiful. And her Renaissance.
That's it.
That is, for me, one of the greatest things written in couplets. I mean, just look at these few lines. Everything in couplets.
All I could see from where I stood was 3 long mountains and a wood. I turned and looked another way and saw 3 islands in a bay. So with my eyes I traced the line of the horizon, thin and fine, straight around till I was come back to where I had started from. And all I saw from where I stood was 3 long mountains and a wood. Over these things I could not see. These were the things that bounded me, and I could touch them with my hand, almost, I thought, from where I stand. And all at once things seemed so small. My breath came short, and scarce at all. But sure, the sky is big, I said, miles and miles above my head. So here upon my back I will lie, and look my fill into the sky. And so I looked, and after all, the sky was not so very tall. The sky, I said, must somewhere stop, and sure enough, I see the top. The sky, I thought, is not so grand. I almost could touch it with my hand, and reaching up my hand to try, I screamed to feel it touch the sky. I screamed, and lo, infinity came down and settled over me, and pressing of the undefined, the definition on my mind, held up before my eyes a glass through which my shrinking sight did pass, until it seemed I must behold immensity made manifold, whispered to me a word whose sound deafened the air for worlds around, and brought unmuffled to my ears the gossiping of friendly spheres, the creaking of the tinted sky, the ticking of eternity. I saw and heard and knew at last the how and why of all things past and present and forevermore. The universe, cleft to the core, lay open to my probing sense, that sickening I would fain plug thence, but could not, nay, but needs must suck at the great wound, and could not pluck my lips away, till I had drawn all venom out. Ah, fearful pawn! For my omniscience paid, I toll, in infinite remorse of soul. All sin was my sinning, all atoning mine, and mine the gall of all regret. Mine was the weight of every brooded wrong, the hate that stood behind each envious trust, mine every greed, mine every lust. And all the while, for every grief, each suffering, I craved relief, with individual desires, craved all in vain, and felt fierce fire. About 1,000 people crawl, perished with each, then mourned for all. A man was starving in Capri. He moved his eyes and looked at me. I felt his gaze, I heard his moan, and knew his hunger as my own. I saw at sea a great fog bank between two ships that struck and sank. 1,000 screams the heavens smote, and every scream tore through my throat. No hurt no hurt I did not feel, no death that was not mine. Mine each last breath that crying met an answering cry from the compassion that was I. All suffering mine, and mine its rod, mine pity like the pity of God. Ah, awful weight, infinity, pressed down upon the finite me. My anguished spirit, like a bird, beating against my lips, I heard. Yet lay the weight so close about, there was no room for it without. And so beneath the weight lay I, and suffered death, but could not die. Long had I lain thus, craving death, when quietly the earth beneath gave way, and inch by inch, so great at last had grown the crushing weight, into the earth I sank, till I, full 6 feet underground did lie, and sank no more. There is no weight can follow here, however great. From off my breast I felt it roll, and as it went, my tortured soul burst forth and fled in such a gust that all about me swirled the dust. Deep in the earth I rested now, cool is its hand upon the brow, and soft its breast beneath the head of one who is so gladly dead. And all at once, and over all, the pitying rain began to fall. I lay and heard each pattering hoof upon my lowly thatched roof, and seemed to love the sound far more than ever I had done before. For rain, it hath a friendly sound to one who is 6 feet underground, and scarce the friendly voice or face. A grave is such a quiet place. The rain, I said, is kind to come and speak to me in my new home. I were alive again, to kiss the fingers of the rain, to drink into my eyes the shine of every slanting silver line, to catch the freshened, fragrant breeze from drenched and dripping apple trees. For soon the shower will be done, and then the broad face of the sun will laugh above the rain-soaked earth, until the world with answering mirth shakes joyously, and each round drop rolls twinkling from its grass blade top. How can I bear it, buried here, while overhead the sky grows clear and blue again after the storm? O multicolored, multiform, beloved beauty over me that I shall never, never see again. Spring silver, autumn gold, that I shall never more behold, sleeping your myriad magics through, close sepulchred away from you. O God, I cried, give me new birth, and put me back upon the earth, upset each cloud's gigantic goad, and let the heavy rain downpoured in one big torrent set me free, washing my grave away from me. I ceased, and through the breathless hush that answered me, the far-off rush of herald wings came whispering like music down the vibrant string of my ascending prayer, and crash before the wild wind's whistling lash, the startled storm clouds reared on high and plunged in terror down the sky, and the big rain in one black wave fell from the sky and struck my grave. I know not how such things can be. I only know there came to me a fragrance such as never clings to aught save happy living things, a sound as of some joyous elf singing sweet songs to please himself, and through and over everything a sense of glad awakening. The grass, a tiptoe at my ear, whispering to me I could hear. I felt the rain's cool fingertips brush tenderly across my lips, laid gently on my sealed sight, and all at once the heavy night fell from my eyes, and I could see a drenched and dripping apple tree, a last long line of silver rain, a sky grown clear and blue again. And as I looked, a quickening gust of wind blew up to me and thrust into my face a miracle of orchard breath, and with the smell, I know not how such things can be. I breathed my soul back into me, and up then from the ground I sprang, and hailed the earth with such a cry as is not heard save from a man who has been dead and lives again. About the trees my arms I wound, like one gone mad I hugged the ground. I raised my quivering arms on high. I laughed and laughed into the sky, till at my throat a strangling sob caught fiercely, and a great heart throb sent instant tears into my eyes. O God, I cried, no dark disguise can e'er hereafter hide from me thy radiant identity. Thou canst not move across the grass, but my quick eyes will see thee pass, nor speak, however silently, but my hushed voice will answer thee. I know the path that tells thy way through the cool eve of every day. God, I can push the grass apart and lay my finger on thy heart. The world stands out on either side, no wider than the heart is wide. Above the world is stretched the sky, no higher than the soul is high. The heart can push the sea and land farther away on either hand. The soul can split the sky in two and let the face of God shine through. But east and west will pinch the heart, that cannot keep them pushed apart, and he whose soul is flat, the sky will cave in on him by and by. It's beautiful, really beautiful.
And you
I'm
read,
truly glad that you showed it to me.
thank you. And
Beautiful.
you read it so beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, again, Sri Aurobindo said, she was a rather wild lady, but Sri Aurobindo said not to judge the person.
That's it.
By
No,
the
one
poet.
should not really. One should not think of the life of the poet to judge his poetry. That we've often seen. The scene.
You've read Dylan Thomas?
A
little bit?
After you told me,
Yeah.
I tried one or two poems,
No,
but
it's difficult, huh?
no.
Yeah.
And it becomes very, very abstract and very obscure, and I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah. But T.S. Eliot, you did.
Pardon?
You like some of T.S. Eliot?
T.S. Eliot, yes, I do. T.S. Eliot, I do like some of the things.
Temi didn't like him at all.
Oh.
She told me, don't read T.S. Eliot.
No, but I suppose it is in that way that we studied with her the Hollow Men, T.S. Eliot's
yes.
Hollow Men, and there we find naturally Temi wouldn't like him. I can understand, because Temi is too much of an idealist, and T.S. Eliot, he is too much of a realist. Too much of a realist, except of course in his poems like the four quartets. Four quartets.
Yeah.
So in that, there we find a different type of T.S. Eliot. Then we find his religious streak in his Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday, there it is entirely based on Catholic religion and their belief in the Virgin Mary and the various saints in between, and so because Ash Wednesday sometimes I do with my students. There are lots. It's filled with references, so I try to give them whatever I can. But T.S. Eliot, I noticed that if you want to appreciate him, you have to know your Bible thoroughly, your Dante thoroughly, and
An Italian.
and a bit of Pascal, because he has got these philosophical ideas. So all these things, if one knows, then one can appreciate, I suppose, T.S. Eliot.
I think the last thing I'd like to ask you to complete a wonderful series is, have you found any of your students to be poets?
I'm sorry, I tried, sometimes to encourage them to write poetry. But then I find that these modern students, they somehow get discouraged very quickly if you criticize them, if you find any fault with what they've done. And then I realized that after all, I'm just, I think, one step ahead of them. I'm only a kind of a guide. Now, if they get discouraged, then better not try. So let them find their own way. So then, some children, they write and they automatically take to this free verse. Because, there they have full freedom and they write in that. And there, I don't bother to correct them or anything. Only one student, as I might have told you earlier, that he is in England now. He is doing his PhD on, and now again my problem has started.
Anyway.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting. He's doing his PhD, and he keeps in touch with me. From time to time, he sends me some poems of his. They're in their own way. They're very beautiful, but I don't think he wants to be a poet. Okay.
Well, Sri Aurobindo says the muse is an inspired bacchant, not an orderly housewife.
That's it. Absolutely, absolutely. No doubt about it. And there we see, because once in a while, when I corrected them, and they were not very happy about it, then I told them that how Aurobindo used to correct Aniruddha's poetry means he used to actually tear him to pieces.
Yeah.
And especially these two books that I'm reading now. And sometimes he could be very sarcastic, and I often think, if I try that kind of sarcasm with my students, they would revolt. Of course, there's no comparison between Aurobindo and me and Aniruddha and these students.
Yes.
Because Aniruddha, as a disciple, he had surrendered himself fully. So he took all the criticism and he benefited from it. But personally, I tell you that when I started writing poetry, naturally, automatically I tried to follow the traditional poets who write with proper rhythm and rhyme. And so I couldn't understand why my students wouldn't like to follow in that path. But then I suppose the whole world has changed so much
Yes.
that
You haven't really spoken about your own poetry.
I'm nothing very great, nothing very great. I know my own limitation, and I have written a few poems here and there, but they are only for my pleasure. Actually, at one time, what I used to do, that's how many of my poems were written, that I used to give the students a subject to write a poem. Because you see, nowadays, one has to safeguard something. That sometimes the students, they're not very conscientious, and they take somebody else's lines and they present it as a poem, as their own poem. To stop that, to have some safeguard, as to give them a subject. I say, write a poem on this subject. Now, when they wrote, then they would say that, it's a very difficult subject, we can't do it. So at that time, I used to write a sonnet on the same subject. And once in a while, not always, once in a while, I used to read out and I used to tell them that it can be tackled in that way. I don't claim there is great poetry, but it can be tackled in this manner. So that's about all. And some of the sonnets and things that I've written has been due to that. But otherwise, on my own, at one time, I had very high hopes that I'll be, when I was very young at that time, that I would be a poet. But then I knew that is not
You have
to
given
be.
us so much. Babu.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It was very kind of you
It's been wonderful.
to